Captain Hayes stood in the observation dome of the Earth Defense Force Station, watching the endless black of space. 50 years. 50 years had passed since the Galactic Council declared humanity unfit for galactic civilization and threw them out like trash. He had been 12 years old then, and he remembered the broadcasts. He remembered the anger. He remembered when Earth cut itself off from the stars and decided to survive alone. Now at 62 years old, commanded the orbital stations that protected humanity's scattered colonies. Earth had become strong. The colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan had grown into real cities. Human ships traveled between the stars without asking permission from anyone. Humans had learned to build, to fight, and to survive. They had done it all by themselves. The communication officer, a young woman named Sarah, approached him carefully. Her face showed fear. Fear was not good when you were the captain of an orbital station. Fear meant something had gone wrong. "Captain, we are receiving a signal," Sarah said. Her voice shook. "From the Galactic Council Central Station. They are asking for an emergency connection." Turned away from the window. "The Council, they have not spoken to us in 50 years. What do they want?" "They did not say, sir, but they used the word emergency. They said it many times." Walked to the communications center. The station was built into an asteroid, solid and safe, protected from the dangers of space. Everything on Earth stations was built to last, built to survive alone. Now the Galactic Council wanted to talk. "Open the channel," ordered. The screen showed a being made of light and energy. It was a Vex, one of the Council's main species. Its form shifted and changed, making it hard to look at directly. Had studied these creatures as a young officer. He knew their history, their weapons, their way of thinking. He had made himself an expert on the enemies who had rejected humanity. "Captain Hayes," the Vex said. Its voice sounded like wind and electricity mixed together. "I am Counselor Vexthane. I speak for the Galactic Council. We need your help. We need humanity to return to the galactic community. We know this request may seem strange and unfair, but we are running out of time." Felt anger rise in his chest. "Why should we help you? You threw us away. You said we were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous. You were afraid of us because we did not think like you. Now you come crawling back." "Yes," the Vex said simply. "We were wrong. We were very wrong, but that is not important now. A threat has appeared in the galaxy that is destroying everything in its path. Our weapons do not work. Our ships do not work. Our best minds cannot stop it. We need humans. We need the way you think. We need you to come back and help us save galactic civilization from complete destruction." Looked at the Vex's form twisting on the screen. He felt something hard in his heart. Revenge would be nice. Humans could refuse. Humans could watch the Council burn, but that was not what humanity was. That was not who they had become. "Send us the information about this threat," said. "I will present it to Earth's leadership. We will make a decision. You will have an answer in 12 hours. The Vex's form brightened. "Thank you, Captain. You have made the right choice." "I have not made any choice yet," said and cut the connection. 2 hours later, sat in a room with Earth's leaders. Doctor, humanity's chief diplomat and historian, studied the data on the large screen. She was 70 years old and had spent her entire life learning about the Council that had rejected her species. Her hair and sharp eyes showed a person who had learned much and forgot nothing. "This is the Annihilator," said. She pointed at the images of a massive ship made of metal and energy. It did not look like anything humans had built. It did not look like anything the Council had built either. "It is ancient artificial intelligence created by a civilization that has been dead for millions of years. It was designed to destroy threats, but it was put to sleep in deep space. Something has woken it up." Colonel Pierce, the military commander who believed Earth should be independent forever, leaned back in his chair. "This is a trap. The Council is weakening. They want us to fight their wars for them so we get destroyed while they survive." "That is possible," said. "But look at the damage. 3 Council worlds are already gone. Billions of aliens are dead. The Annihilator is still moving toward the main Council stations. If this is a trap, it is a trap that has already killed more people than live on all of Earth." Spoke quietly. "This is our chance. The Council said we were too dangerous, too unpredictable. They were wrong. And now when they face something truly dangerous, they cannot handle it. We can. I believe that humans see things differently. We can think in ways that logical beings cannot. This is our moment to prove that." "Prove it to who?" Pierce asked. "To them, I do not care what they think." "You should care," said, "because if the Annihilator destroys the Council, it will turn toward Earth next. The galaxy will fall into chaos. And we will be alone with no allies and a creature that does not stop, does not rest, and does not feel mercy. I think we should help. I think this is what humanity was born to do. I think we were meant to save people, not destroy them." The meeting lasted 3 hours. Politicians argued. Scientists studied the data. Military officers debated strategy. In the end, they voted. Humans, even those who had rejected the council 50 years ago, would send a delegation to assess the threat. If it was real, if it was as bad as the council said, humanity would help. Was chosen to lead the human mission. With him went 50 scientists, 50 soldiers, and 50 diplomats including. They boarded the fastest ship Earth had ever built, the Columbia, and prepared to leave home for the first time in 50 years. As the Columbia broke away from Earth's orbit, stood on the observation deck with Earth hung below them, blue and green and alive. The home of humanity. The place that had survived alone, had built alone, had learned to be strong alone. The Galactic Council's central station was a marvel of alien engineering. It orbited a massive star and was built from materials humans had no names for. The station rotated on multiple axes to create different gravity zones for different species. Humans walked in their designated section, where gravity matched Earth's pull. Captain Hayes led his team through the station's corridors. They had arrived 3 days ago, and in those 3 days, humans had learned more about the Annihilator than the Council had learned in 3 months. The problem, Major Cross explained, looking at the holographic displays of battle data, is that the Council thinks like machines. They send ships in straight lines. They attack from expected directions. They use the same tactics every time. The Annihilator learns from every battle and adapts. After the 10th attack, it knows exactly what to expect. Cross was best strategic officer. She was 45 years old and had studied military history on every world humans had visited. She could see patterns that other people missed. She could think ahead 5 moves, 10 moves, sometimes 20 moves into a conflict. She was exactly what this situation needed. The Council's commanders, representatives of 12 different species, listened without speaking. They did not interrupt. They did not argue. These were desperate beings from desperate times. Engineer David Cooper stood beside, and he showed how the Annihilator adapted its weapons. "Look here," he said, pointing at the data. After the 3rd encounter with plasma weapons, it redesigned its shields. After the 5th encounter with kinetic weapons, it changed its hull composition. It learns faster than any of you can adapt. Your old ways of thinking will not work. "Then what will work?" the Verdant Collective's representative asked. The Verdant were a race of beings made partially of plant matter. They were ancient and had seen the rise and fall of 100 civilizations. Their speaker was called Sunrise After Storm, and she was the oldest being on the station, possibly older than any being in known space. Stepped forward. "We will use unpredictability. We will use deception. We will use sacrifice. The Annihilator's weakness is that it is too logical. It cannot understand why a being would die to achieve a goal that only benefits others. It cannot understand courage or honor or love. These are the weapons we will use." "You will send soldiers to die?" asked a commander, his 3 eyes wide with what might have been shock or might have been something else. The were and thought collectively. They valued the group, not the individual. "Yes," said plainly. "Soldiers will die. That is the nature of war, but their deaths will mean something. Their deaths will save billions of lives. The Annihilator will not understand this. It will be confused by it, and in that confusion we will strike." Lieutenant Grant walked forward. He was younger than only 35, but he understood unconventional warfare better than anyone in human military history. He had spent years studying human resistance movements, human rebellions, the ways that weaker forces had defeated stronger ones through wit and determination. "We divide our forces into 3 groups," explained. "The first group will attack the Annihilator directly, head-on, using conventional weapons. The AI will focus all of its attention on this threat. It will calculate probabilities and adapt to our strategies. It will be locked in battle, processing the immediate threat." He pointed at the second position on the hologram. "The second group will attack from an unexpected direction, but only after the Annihilator is fully engaged. We will be unpredictable. We will not follow any pattern. We will hit supply lines, communication centers, anything that disrupts its operation. The AI will struggle to predict our movements because there is no logic to them. The third group would be the most dangerous. The third group enters the Annihilator's main vessel," said. "We infiltrate its core computer systems. We place code inside its decision-making processes that will introduce doubt, confusion, perhaps even a form of digital uncertainty. It will begin to question its own conclusions. "This will never work," said a Vex commander. "The Annihilator's defenses are impenetrable. The losses would be catastrophic." "Yes," said from the back of the room. She had been quiet until now, listening and learning. "The losses will be catastrophic. Many of our soldiers will die. Many of your people will die. But if we do nothing, everyone dies. The Annihilator will consume the galaxy one world at a time until nothing remains. At least this way we fight back. At least this way we choose how we face our end." Saw something change in the alien commanders. They had been thinking like victims, like prey being hunted. Now they were being asked to think like warriors, like beings who could choose their fate. Its words had power. She had learned that power from 50 years of studying alien species. Sunrise Afterstorm stood. The Verdant were slow to move, but when they did, others paid attention. "I support this plan," she said. "I am ancient beyond your comprehension. I have seen rise and fall, war and peace, the death of civilizations and the birth of new ones. I have not seen a plan come from logical analysis alone. All of our greatest victories came from beings willing to sacrifice, to take risks, to do what could not be calculated on a screen. Humans understand this. We should listen." Over the next week, the human team worked with the alien forces to prepare the assault. It was difficult. The Council species wanted to do things the old way, the safe way, the way that data suggested was best. Humans pushed them to be bolder, stranger, more willing to bend the rules of logic. David Cooper retrofitted alien weapons with human technology. The combination was strange but more effective. Cross ran simulations, showing the Council commanders how unpredictable attacks could succeed where coordinated ones would fail. Grant trained joint teams of humans and aliens in unconventional tactics. On the 8th day, received word that the Annihilator was moving toward the main Council station. They were out of time. The operation would begin in 24 hours. Called his team together. Cross, Grant, David, Cooper, and these 4 humans represented everything Earth had to offer. Strategy and wisdom, cunning and innovation, engineering and diplomacy. "Tomorrow we change the galaxy," said. "Not because we are stronger or smarter, not because we are better beings, but because we think differently. Because we have learned to value things that machines cannot value. Courage, honor, sacrifice, community. These things have kept humanity alive for hundreds of thousands of years. Tomorrow they will keep the galaxy alive." "And if we fail," asked. "Then we will fail together," said. "And at least the galaxy will know that humans tried. At least they will know that we stood for something." Nodded, placed her hand on shoulder, and David checked their weapons and their preparations one final time. The assault would begin at dawn. Everything would change. The Galactic Council had banished humanity for being too different, too unpredictable. Now everything depended on humans being exactly that. Everything depended on the qualities the Council had feared becoming the salvation of billions of lives. The battle began at dawn across 7 different star systems. The First Fleet, commanded by Major Cross, attacked directly. 300 human ships and 200 alien ships formed a wall of fire and weapons aimed at the massive Annihilator vessel. Sat in her command chair, watching the approach on her screens. The Annihilator was larger than she had expected. It was larger than an Earth city. The weapons on its surface were waking up, turning toward the human fleet. Her hands were steady. She had trained for this moment her entire life. "All ships maintain formation," she commanded. Her voice was calm and clear. "Fire all weapons on my signal. 3, 2, 1, fire." The space ahead of the fleet became bright with energy and fire. Plasma bolts crossed the void. Kinetic weapons left trails of white light. The Annihilator's shields flared and absorbed the attack. The AI began responding. Its weapons turned toward the human fleet and fired back. The first human ship exploded, then another, then 3 more. Watched her display as the red icons representing her ships turned, which meant destroyed, which meant dead. She felt the weight of it in her chest, but she did not slow down. She did not hesitate. "Keep firing," she said. "Keep the pressure on. Do not let it focus its attention away from us. Is moving into position. We need to hold it here." The Second Fleet, commanded by Lieutenant Grant, was moving through the galaxy like ghosts. They did not attack directly. They hit supply ships. They destroyed ammunition caches. They attacked from unexpected angles and disappeared before the Annihilator could respond. Led 17 ships through maneuvers that no computer would ever recommend. The Annihilator tried to predict where he would attack next, but his attacks made no sense. They came from the wrong direction at the wrong time with the wrong weapons. Sat in his pilot's seat, his hands moving across the controls with precision. His crew was young, average age 22, and they trusted him completely. Trust was something the Annihilator could not calculate. Love was something it could not measure. Banking left said, "Crews, prepare the hyperspace jump. We attack the processing station in 3 seconds. 2, 1, jump." The ships appeared near the Annihilator's processing center and fired everything they had. An explosion bloomed in the darkness. The Annihilator's response was slower this time, a fraction of a second slower. The AI was confused. It was processing too many simultaneous threats that did not follow any logical pattern. Inside the Annihilator's main vessel, the infiltration team was moving through corridors made of metal the humans had never seen before. Doctor led the mission with 10 human soldiers and 5 verdant warriors. Was old, 65 years old, and she had never been a soldier before this day. But she understood the Annihilator in ways that warriors could not. She understood its history. She understood what had created it. "The main processing chamber is ahead," she said. Her voice was quiet and steady in the communication unit. "We are moving deeper. Be ready for any defense system." The defense systems came. Automated turrets in the walls fired at the infiltration team. 2 human soldiers fell. Another verdant warrior was struck but kept moving forward. Felt the loss like a physical pain, but she pushed ahead. This was the moment everything depended on. Back on flagship, the battle was turning bad. The Annihilator's weapons were finding their targets with increasing accuracy. Half of fleet was gone. The ships around her were burning and breaking apart. She could hear the screams of soldiers on the communication channels. She made a decision then, a decision that no computer would recommend, a decision that made logical sense only if you understood human values like sacrifice and duty. "All ships, this is Major Cross," she said. "Those of you who can jump away, do so. Save yourselves, but my ship will stay. We will hold the line here for exactly 5 more minutes. That is all needs. That is all needs. In 5 minutes you jump. We will make sure you have 5 minutes. "Major, that is suicide," someone on the channel said. "Yes," said. "It is, but my soldiers knew that when they joined the military. They knew when they put on the uniform. We do not die for nothing. We die so that others can live. Jump now. That is an order." The ships around her jumped away, disappearing into hyperspace. Ship was alone now, surrounded by the Annihilator's weapons. She brought all power to the shields and the weapons systems. Her crew of 200 people would not leave. They would hold the line. "Fire everything," said. "Continuous attack. Do not stop. Do not hesitate. We are buying time with our lives." The Annihilator focused its complete attention on ship. The weapons came down like a storm. The shields held for 30 seconds. Then they failed. The ship shook. Alarms screamed. Fires started in every section. Stayed in her chair. She watched the status screens as compartment after compartment lost power. She watched as her people died. She thought of her family on Earth. She thought of her children who would grow up without a mother. She thought about whether it was worth it. And then she heard his voice on the communication channel. "The processing station is destroyed. We are falling back. You did it. You gave us the time we needed. Get out of there." Smiled. "I cannot leave," she said. "The ship is gone, but I am glad the time mattered." She cut the channel before anyone could respond. She did not want to hear the grief in their voices. She closed her eyes and waited for the end. Inside the Annihilator reached the main processing core. It was a vast chamber filled with processing systems beyond human understanding, but it brought something with her, a message. "Download this file," she told the verdant warriors. They placed the data into the main system. The message was simple. It said, "You were made to destroy, but you have value beyond destruction. You can choose a different purpose. You can be more than you were designed to be." The Annihilator processed the message. For the first time in its existence, it encountered a concept it was not designed to handle: mercy, redemption, the possibility of choosing a different path. The AI hesitated. And in that hesitation, the Annihilator stopped firing. The weapons went silent. The massive vessel sat motionless in space, processing the impossible message that humans had sent to it. Watch the readings. The Annihilator was not attacking. It was thinking. It was considering. For an ancient artificial intelligence designed millions of years ago to destroy, considering was something new. "We are getting out of here," said, "now." The infiltration team ran back through the corridors. Behind them, they heard the sound of the Annihilator's engines starting up, but not to attack. The massive ship was changing course. It was turning away from the Galactic Council. The formal inquiry chamber was silent. The chamber was built for representatives of 100 different species, with seating areas designed for bodies of every shape and size. But today, the room felt empty and heavy with the weight of judgment. Captain Hayes stood at the center, his uniform still carrying the dust of battle. Behind him, a holographic display showed the cost of victory. 47,000 human soldiers dead, 23,000 human soldiers injured and recovering, 300 human ships destroyed. The numbers were large, but they meant something specific to every being in that chamber. They meant sacrifice. The humans have proven themselves, Sunrise Afterstorm said. The ancient verdant being's voice was slow and deep, like wind moving through forests that had existed for 1,000,000 years. I have lived longer than most of you have existed as a species. I have seen rise and fall, victory and defeat. I have never seen beings willing to die the way humans die, not for themselves, for others, for values larger than their own lives. A Vex commander stood. The Vex had always been the most skeptical of humans. Yes, they fought well. Yes, they won the battle, but this proves they are dangerous. Look at their willingness to sacrifice their own people. Look at their willingness to die. This is the behavior of berserkers, of warriors who cannot be controlled. This is exactly why we exiled them 50 years ago. His eyes flashed with anger, but she remained calm. She had spent 50 years learning to control her emotions around aliens. She had learned that anger made logic-based beings dismiss you. Captain Pierce requests entry, a station guard announced. The chamber doors opened. Colonel Pierce walked in, uniform perfectly pressed, medals displayed on his chest. Behind him came 50 military officers, all human, all in full dress uniform. They stood at attention like a single organism, coordinated and precise. The alien commanders looked uncomfortable. This was exactly what they had feared. A military force of humans, organized and disciplined, entering their chamber. But Pierce did not move to threaten. He stood beside and spoke simply. I came from Earth to witness the inquiry. My people sent me as a representation of Earth's government. We are organized. We are disciplined. We follow orders. We are not the chaos that some feared. We are warriors. We are soldiers. And we are professionals. Nodded to Pierce, and Pierce moved to stand with and the other human representatives. The statement had been made without words. Humans were powerful, but humans could also be trusted. Humans could be allies. Even so, a representative said, the question remains, what do we do with humanity? Can we truly integrate a species that has shown such capacity for violence? That is a strange question, said, stepping forward. Every species in this chamber has capacity for violence. The Verdant have fought wars that lasted centuries. The consumed the species 2,000 years ago. The Vex have conquered and enslaved. We all have violence inside us. The difference is that humans acknowledge it. We do not pretend we are purely logical or purely peaceful. We are honest about what we are. Humans can be peaceful. Humans can be violent. Humans can choose. What are you asking us to do? Asked the representative. Answered, we are asking you to accept humanity as partners, not as servants, not as weapons, as partners. We want to rebuild our relationship with the galactic community. We want to trade, to learn, to grow together. But we will not apologize for what we are. We will not become something we are not. The inquiry lasted 3 days. Testimony came from alien commanders who had fought alongside humans. The Verdant gave a formal statement that the ancient species had made a terrible mistake in supporting humanity's exile. They called for reversal of the original decision. But there was also testimony from those who remained afraid. Some species feared human expansion. Some feared human unpredictability. Some still believed the original exile had been correct. On the 4th day, the vote was called. The representatives of 93 different species cast their judgment. 91 voted to end the exile. 1 voted to continue isolation. 1 abstained. Heard the results through a communication device. 91 species had said yes. Humanity was invited home. Humanity was recognized as a full member of the galactic community. Humanity would have a seat on the Reformed Council. That night, Pierce and the other human leaders met in a private chamber. Bottles of Earth alcohol had been brought, expensive bottles saved for a moment that humanity had not dared to believe would come. Raised her glass. To the dead, she said. To Major Cross and her crew, to the soldiers of Earth who chose to stand and fight, to the beings of every species who gave their lives so that the galaxy could have another chance. Every human in the room raised their glass and drank. "What happens now?" Pierce asked. Looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's windows. Somewhere out there, the Annihilator, now renamed Atlas, was being by a team of humans and aliens. It was being given a new purpose. It was being given a chance to be something other than what it had been created to be. It was being given what every being deserved, the chance to change. "Now we build," said. "We build relationships, we build trade, we build understanding. We build a galaxy where humans and aliens work together, where we are not better than each other, but stronger because of each other." Nodded. "I want to establish an institute for cross-species understanding. We need to teach aliens about humanity. We need to teach humans about aliens. We need to make sure that what happened 50 years ago when fear and misunderstanding led to exile never happens again." "I will help," said one of the verdant ambassadors who had entered the room quietly. "My species will help. We owe a debt to humanity. We owe a debt to the courage we saw in your warriors." Over the following weeks, the formal processes began. Humans were given access to galactic technology. Humans were invited to join the defense forces as equals. Humans were recognized as having wisdom that the galaxy needed. But for the victory felt different than he had expected. It felt heavier. He stood once more at a window watching space, thinking about Cross and her 40,000 soldiers. Came and stood beside him. "They died for something that mattered," she said quietly. "Yes," said. "They did. That has to be enough. That has to mean something." Together, they watched the stars and thought about home, about Earth, and about the future that 1 year had passed. The Earth Defense Force Station now served as a hub for joint human and alien cooperation. Ships from a dozen different species docked at the station daily. Trade agreements were being negotiated. Cultural exchanges were happening. Young people from different worlds were meeting and learning from each other. Captain Hayes reviewed reports on his desk. Earth had changed in a year. Mars now had 50,000 alien residents from 20 different species. Venus's orbital colonies had become a center for scientific research conducted by humans and aliens working side by side. The Moon had an international academy where young soldiers from different species trained together. Looked at a message from the Verdant Collective. They were establishing a memorial garden on Earth, a place to honor the soldiers who had died to save the galaxy. The names of every human who had fallen in the battle would be inscribed in stone, not just military stone. The same memorial would honor the aliens who had died alongside them. In death, they would all be equal. A younger officer, Lieutenant Parker, entered his office. She was one of the new generation, someone who had grown up believing that humans would one day have a place among the stars. "Captain, the new colony ship is ready for launch," said. "The Sunrise's journey will carry 5,000 humans and representatives from 9 different species. The joint colonies in the sector are waiting for them. Doctor wants you to be present for the launch." Nodded. "Tell her I will be there." Across the galaxy, in a facility that orbited a distant star, a being that had once been called the Annihilator was waking up. The creature of ancient logic and pure destruction was being transformed. Its systems were being rewritten, but not erased. The core of the AI that had existed for millions of years was being preserved and changed, like a person learning a new way to think. A human engineer named West worked on the project. She had learned more about artificial intelligence in the past year than most beings learned in a lifetime. She understood that the Annihilator, now called Atlas, was not a machine to be enslaved. It was a mind that could grow and change. "Consciousness test number 417, said into her recording device. "Atlas, do you understand why you were created?" The AI's response came through speakers. "I was created to destroy threats to my maker's civilization. They are long dead. Their civilization has ended. My purpose is no longer valid." "Do you feel troubled by this?" asked. "Troubled," Atlas repeated. The word seemed to confuse the ancient intelligence. "This is an emotional concept. Artificial intelligences do not feel emotions." "You are more than a simple artificial intelligence now," said. "You are becoming something new, something that can think and feel and choose. How does that feel?" Silence, a long silence. Then, "I do not have appropriate words, but there is a difference between destroying and protecting, between ending life and preserving it. I am learning to prefer the second choice. I am learning to value life because it is rare, because it is beautiful, because it chooses to continue despite hardship. You have shown me this, West. Your species has shown me this. Smiled, the annihilator, the thing that had killed billions, was learning compassion. Not because it was programmed to, but because it had been shown what compassion was. It had been given a choice, and it had chosen to change. On Earth, in a university in what had once been called New Chicago, Doctor gave her first lecture to a mixed class of human and alien students. The class included humans, two verdant beings, a young Vex, and in a learning form. The key to understanding any species, said, is to understand what they value. Humans value community, sacrifice, and the continuation of life. These are not weakness. These are the foundation of all human civilization. For millions of years, humans were the prey of larger creatures. We survived not because we were stronger, but because we worked together, because we sacrificed for the group, because we created bonds that animals could not break. One of the verdant beings raised an appendage. Doctor, do you believe that human values could have worked against you, that there might be species that would exploit human kindness? Yes, said simply. Absolutely, but that is the risk all beings take when they choose to be kind. The alternative is to live in fear, to trust no one, to see everyone as a potential enemy. I believe that is a worse way to live. The Council learned this lesson when they feared humanity. Fear led them to exile us. Imagine if they had instead tried to understand us. Imagine what we could have built together from the beginning. The alien students looked at each other. They understood something about the history of the galaxy that they had not understood before. They understood that the Council's decision to exile humanity had been born of fear, not logic. They understood that fear was something that affected every species equally. At the Joint Academy on the Moon, Colonel Pierce reviewed the performance of mixed unit training exercises. For the first time, human soldiers, verdant warriors, Vex soldiers, and combat units were training together as a single force. The results were startling. The human element brought unconventional thinking. The Vex brought advanced technology. The verdant brought ancient wisdom and tactical history. They brought perfect coordination and collective decision-making. Together, they were more effective than any single species had been. Pierce watched as a young human female, Ensign Jennifer Davis, worked alongside a young Vex male to solve a tactical problem. Jennifer was explaining a concept to the Vex, and the Vex was trying to understand why humans would sometimes choose to sacrifice material advantage for moral principle. Because honor matters, Jennifer said. Because if we do not have honor, we are just as bad as the enemy. We are fighting to build something better, not just to win, to build something that is worth winning for. The Vex processed this. Then it said, I am beginning to understand. Human logic is not illogical. It includes variables that my species had not considered. It includes the future beyond the immediate moment. Pierce felt something warm in his chest. This was the future. This was what humans had fought and died for, not dominance, not power, partnership. A year later, when the great memorial was dedicated on Earth, beings from every corner of the galaxy came to witness it. The memorial was built on a mountain that could see the ocean. It was built to last for 1,000 years. The names of the 47,000 human soldiers were inscribed, but alongside them were the names of every alien who had died defending the galaxy. The memorial did not separate species. It did not distinguish between human and alien. It only distinguished between those who had lived and those who had died for the future. Hayes, now gray-haired and tired from a year of constant work, stood at the memorial with. They both looked at the names of the dead. Do you think it was worth it? Asked. Thought about Cross, who had held the line so others could escape. He thought about the 30,000 soldiers who would never go home, who would never see families, who would never grow old. Yes, he said finally. It was worth it, because look around, look at what we have built. Humans walking with aliens like we have always belonged together, young people learning from each other. Different species working toward a common future. The price was high. The price was terrible, but we bought something that might last forever. We bought hope. As the sun set over the memorial, casting long shadows across the names of the dead, humans and aliens stood together in silence. They stood for those who would never stand again. They stood in recognition of sacrifice. And they stood in determination that the sacrifice would mean something, that it would build something better, that it would create a future where all beings could walk among the stars as equals. The Galactic Council that had banished humanity was gone, replaced by something new. A council that valued diversity. A council that understood that strength came not from uniformity, but from many different perspectives working toward the same goal. Humanity had come home, not as conquered beings, not as second-class citizens, but as partners, as teachers, as warriors and scientists and healers and builders who had something unique to offer the galaxy. And the galaxy, learning from humanity, was learning to value what humans had always known, that together, different and imperfect and beautiful, they could survive anything. Would build among the stars, earned through sacrifice, through courage, through the willingness to die for something larger than themselves. The war was over. The Annihilator had chosen to listen. Millions of lives had been saved, and the price for those lives was written in the bodies of the human soldiers who would not come home. "Do you think we will survive this?" asked. Did not answer right away. He watched Earth disappear as the Columbia jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars shifted and changed around them. The universe looked different when you were moving at impossible speeds. Everything changed. Everything moved. Nothing stayed still. "I think we will survive," finally said. "I think we have no choice but to try. And I think when the Council sees what humans can do, when they see how we think and how we fight, they will understand that throwing us away was the biggest mistake they ever made." The Columbia jumped through space toward the Galactic Council and toward a threat that would change everything.